Hello everyone, here we are. We're going to get going with 1 Samuel 7, okay? And they had just watched the ark go towards Beth Shechem, I believe, which proved to the Philistines that the Lord had sent the tumors or hemorrhoids or emerods against them, as well as I think they must have had rats. And so they had put into the ark when they sent it back a gift of 5 golden tumors and 5 golden rats. Remember, these are ancient times, okay? Here we go. So the men of Kiriath Jearim came and took up the ark of the Lord, because once it went back to, I believe, Beth Shechem, the people there, 70 of them died from looking inside it, and they're like, we don't want it, and they sent it on to Kiriath Jearim. So here we go. So the men of Kiriath Jearim came and took up the ark of the Lord. They brought it to Abinadab's house on the hill and consecrated Eleazar his son to guard the ark of the Lord. The ark remained at Kiriath Jearim a long time, 20 years in all. Then all the people of Israel turned back to the Lord. So Samuel said to all the Israelites, if you're returning to the Lord with all your hearts, then rid yourselves of the foreign gods and the Ashtoreths, and commit yourselves to the Lord and serve him only, and he'll deliver you out of the hand of the Philistines. So the Israelites put away their Baals and their Ashtoreths and served the Lord only. Then Samuel said, assemble all Israel at Mizpah, and I will intercede with the Lord for you. And we remember that Samuel is their prophet, okay? He was raised by Eli the priest from the time of probably 2 or 3 years old, maybe 3 years old, when he was weaned from his mother. When they had assembled at Mizpah, they drew water and poured it out before the Lord. On that day they fasted, and there they confessed, we have sinned against the Lord. Now Samuel was serving as leader of Israel at Mizpah. When the Philistines heard that Israel had assembled at Mizpah, the rulers of the Philistines came up to attack them. When the Israelites heard of it, they were afraid because of the Philistines. They said to Samuel, don't stop crying out to the Lord our God for us, that he may rescue us from the hand of the Philistines. Then Samuel took a suckling lamb and sacrificed it as a whole burnt offering to the Lord. He cried out to the Lord on Israel's behalf, and the Lord answered him. Hold on. While Samuel was sacrificing the burnt offering, the Philistines drew near to engage in battle. But that day, the Lord thundered with loud thunder against the Philistines and threw them into such a panic that they were routed before the Israelites. The men of Israel rushed out of Mizpah and pursued the Philistines, slaughtering them along the way to a point below Beth-kar. Then Samuel took a stone and set it up between Mizpah and Shen, S-H-E-N. He named it Ebenezer, saying, thus far the Lord has helped us. Now that's funny because I have a relative named Ebenezer, and he, I believe it was him, one of our relatives, rode through the troops in the Civil War preaching the gospel to them. So he must have prayed it forward, and I am enjoying a relationship with the Lord probably because, as Christians, we do pray for the generations to come in our family line. And I feel like he must have prayed for the future Christians in his family line, and I caught that blessing. All right, so it's just funny that his name was Ebenezer Hines, H-I-N-E-S, and he was here just off Cape, about 9 miles off Cape in Bridgewater, and his grave is up there. And he's probably a great-great-great-grandfather, all the way back to the Civil War. But he was a pastor in Bridgewater, and so I believe he was the one that rode through the troops in the Civil War preaching the gospel. All right. And maybe I caught his spirit too. We're of the same cellular memory, and perhaps I've got a little bit of Ebenezer. Matter of fact, there's a saying in our family, something like, well, if Ebenezer could do it or would do it or something like that. I can't remember. My grandmother told me, but now she's gone and I forgot what she told me. All right, but it says he named it Ebenezer. This is the stone that Samuel set up between Mizpah and Shen, saying, "Thus far the Lord has helped us." So the Philistines were subdued and they stopped invading Israel's territory. Throughout Samuel's lifetime, the hand of the Lord was against the Philistines. The towns from Ekron to Gath that the Philistines had captured from Israel were restored to Israel, and Israel delivered the neighboring territory from the hands of the Philistines, and there was peace between Israel and the Amorites. Samuel continued as Israel's leader all the days of his life. From year to year, he went on a circuit from Bethel to Gilgal to Mizpah, judging Israel in all those places. But he always went back to Ramah, where his home was, and Ramah is spelled Ramah. But he always went back to Ramah, where his home was, and there he also held court for Israel, and he built an altar there to the Lord. Okay, 1 Samuel chapter 8. When Samuel grew old, he appointed his sons as Israel's leaders. The name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second was Abijah, and they served at Beersheba. But his sons didn't follow his ways. They turned aside after dishonest gain and accepted bribes and perverted justice. I guess that happens to the best of us, doesn't it? Because my daughters didn't follow my way, and I raised each of them, concentrating on them one at a time, and still neither of them are serving the Lord. So all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah. They said to him, "You're old, and your sons don't follow your ways. Now appoint a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have." But when they said, "Give us a king to lead us," this displeased Samuel, so he prayed to the Lord. And the Lord told him, "Listen to all that the people are saying to you. It's not you they've rejected, but they've rejected me as their king." God's saying, if they've rejected you, they've rejected me. It's really not you, it's me they're rejecting. "As they've done from the day I brought them up out of Egypt until this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so they're doing to you. Now listen to them, but warn them solemnly and let them know what the king who will reign over them will claim as his rights." Samuel told all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking him for a king. He said, "This is what the king who will reign over you will claim as his rights. He'll take your sons and make them serve with his chariots and horses, and they will run in front of his chariots. Some he'll assign to be commanders of thousands and commanders of 50s, and others to plow his ground and reap his harvest, and still others to make weapons of war and equipment for his chariots. He'll take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He'll take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive groves and give them to his attendants. He'll take 1/10 of your grain and of your vintage and give it to his officials and attendants. Your male and female servants and the best of your cattle and donkeys he'll take for his own use. He'll take 1/10 of your flocks, and you yourselves will become his slaves. When that day comes, you'll cry out for relief from the king you've chosen, but the Lord will not answer you in that day." But the people refused to listen to Samuel. "No," they said, "we want a king over us. Then we'll be like all the other nations, with a king to lead us and go out before us and fight our battles." When Samuel heard all that the people said, he repeated it before the Lord. The Lord answered, "Listen to them and give them a king." Then Samuel said to the Israelites, "Everyone go back to your own town." 1 Samuel 9. There was a Benjamite, a man of standing, whose name was Kish, son of Abiel, the son of Zerah, the son of Bechorath, the son of Aphiah of Benjamin. The reason that's all listed is to make sure you know exactly which Benjamite this was. Which Kish, whose name was Kish, son of Abiel, son of Zerah, so that you can trace him right back and you know exactly which Kish. Not that Kish, this Kish, okay? Kish had a son named Saul. As handsome a young man as could be found anywhere in Israel, and he was a head taller than anyone else. Now the donkeys belonging to Saul's father Kish were lost, and Kish said to his son Saul, "Take one of the servants with you and go look for the donkeys." So he passed through the hill country of Ephraim and through the area around Shalisha, but they didn't find them. They went on into the district of Shaalim, and the donkeys were not there. Then he passed through the territory of Benjamin, but they didn't find them. When they reached the district of Zuph, Z-U-P-H, Saul said to the servant who was with him, "Come, let's go back, or my father will stop thinking about the donkeys and start worrying about us." But the servant said, "Look, in this town there's a man of God. He's highly respected, and everything he said comes true. Let's go there now. Perhaps he'll tell us what way to take." Saul said to his servant, "If we go, what can we give the man? The food in our sacks is gone. We have no gift to take to the man of God. What do we have?" See how people were? They brought gifts to each other. I mean, they everything was done properly and in order. Like even back in the 1800s, you dropped a calling card at somebody's house. You had your own calling cards. I mean, everything was proper and orderly. Now everything, ever since the 60s and that whole Haight-Ashbury love thing, everything's just gone down the tubes. We have no class, no boundaries, nothing. And this is how people get hurt. Not only emotionally, but physically. This is how people are getting hurt because they're disrespected. "We have no gift to take to the man of God. What do we have?" The servant answered him again. "Look," he said, "I have a quarter of a shekel of silver. I'll give it to the man of God so that he'll tell us what way to take." Formerly in Israel, if someone went to inquire of God, they would say, "Come, let us go to the seer," because the prophet of today used to be called a seer. "Good," Saul said to his servant, "come, let's go." So they set out for the town where the man of God was. As they were going up the hill to the town, they met some young women coming out to draw water, and they asked them, "Is the seer here?" "He is," they answered. "He's ahead of you. Hurry now. He's just come to our town today, for the people have a sacrifice at the high place. As soon as you enter the town, you'll find him before he goes up to the high place to eat. The people will not begin eating until he comes, because he must bless the sacrifice. Afterward, those who are invited will eat. Go up now. You should find him about this time." They went up to the town, and as they were entering it, there was Samuel coming toward them on his way to the high place, way up to the high place. Now, the day before Saul came, the Lord had revealed this to Samuel. "About this time tomorrow, I'll send you a man from the land of Benjamin. Anoint him ruler over my people Israel. He will deliver them from the hand of the Philistines. I've looked on my people, for their cry has reached me." When Samuel caught sight of Saul, the Lord said to him, "This is the man I spoke to you about. He will govern my people." Saul approached Samuel in the gateway and asked, "Would you please tell me where the seer's house is?" "I am the seer," Samuel replied. "Go up ahead of me to the high place, for today you're to eat with me, and in the morning I'll send you on your way and tell you all that is in your heart. As for the donkeys you lost 3 days ago, don't worry about them. They have been found. And to whom is all the desire of Israel turned, if not to you and your whole family line?" Wow, that would take me aback. I'd be like, what? Israel's turning to my family line? To me and my family? Saul answered, "But am I not a Benjamite from the smallest tribe of Israel, and is not my clan the least of all the clans of the tribe of Benjamin? Why do you say such a thing to me?" And remember that Benjamites weren't even liked after the situation with the concubine being raped to death, right? Then Samuel brought Saul and his servant into the hall and seated them at the head of those who were invited, about 30 in number. Samuel said to the cook, "Bring the piece of meat I gave you, the one I told you to lay aside." So the cook took up the thigh with what was on it and set it in front of Samuel. Remember, the thigh has meaning. Samuel said, "Here is what has been kept for you. Eat, because it was set aside for you for this occasion from the time I said I have invited guests." And Saul dined with Samuel that day. Hold on, I just want to go back and look at this. All right. After they came down from the high place to the town, Samuel talked with Saul on the roof of his house. They rose about daybreak, and Samuel called to Saul on the roof, "Get ready, and I'll send you on your way." When Saul got ready, he and Samuel went outside together. So Saul stayed at Samuel's house with his servant. As they were going down to the edge of the town, Samuel said to Saul, "Tell the servant to go on ahead of us," and the servant did so. "But you stay here for a while so that I may give you a message, from God." All right, last one for the night, 1 Samuel chapter 10. Okay, here we go. Then Samuel took a flask. Sorry, I'm going to get picky about my hair. Then Samuel took a flask of olive oil and poured it on Saul's head and kissed him, saying, "Has not the Lord anointed you ruler over his inheritance? When you leave me today, you will meet 2 men near Rachel's tomb at Zelzah on the border of Benjamin. They will say to you, 'The donkeys you set out to look for have been found.' And now your father has stopped thinking about them and is worried about you. He is asking, 'What shall I do about my son?' Then you will go on from there until you reach the great tree of Tabor. 3 men going up to worship God at Bethel will meet you there. One will be carrying 3 young goats, another 3 loaves of bread, and another a skin of wine. They will greet you and offer you 2 loaves of bread, which you will accept from them. After that, you will go to Gibeah of God, where there is a Philistine outpost. As you approach the town, you will meet a procession of prophets coming down from the high place with lyres, timbrels. I said lyres, but I think it's lyres, Lyres. Timbrels, pipes, and harps being played before them, and they will be prophesying. The Spirit of the Lord will come powerfully upon you, and you will prophesy with them, and you will be changed into a different person. Now, don't think he's so special, because when we come to Christ, we get changed into a different person. Okay, we still have all of our personality. You know, if you're funny, you're still funny. If you're smart, you're still smart. Whatever. You know, the things that make you are still there, but you become a different person on the inside. Becoming a different person doesn't mean losing who you are. It means, hopefully, that you've turned into something better. It's like a butterfly, you know, a caterpillar into a butterfly, okay? So he's saying here, you will prophesy with them and you will be changed into a different person. Once these signs are fulfilled, do whatever your hand finds to do, for God is with you. Go down ahead of me to Gilgal. I'll surely come down to you to sacrifice burnt offerings and fellowship offerings, but you must wait 7 days until I come to you and tell you what you're to do." As Saul turned to leave Samuel, God changed Saul's heart. See how God can do that? You turn to God and he'll change your heart. You turn your face toward, just turn and let him heal you. Like Jesus said, if they would just turn, I would heal them. You just turn and God will change your heart. You'll still be you, but your heart will change. As Saul turned to leave Samuel, God changed Saul's heart, and all these signs were fulfilled that day. When he and his servant arrived at Gibeah, a procession of prophets met him. The Spirit of God came powerfully upon him, and he joined in their prophesying. When all those who had formerly known him saw him prophesying with the prophets, they asked each other, "What is this that's happened to the son of Kish? Is Saul also among the prophets?" That's like when I got clean and sober, people were like, "What happened to her?" What? You're kidding. And then I think when I became a Christian too, people were like, "What?" A man who lived there answered, "And who is their father?" So it became a saying, "Is Saul also among the prophets?" Okay, let me say that again. What is this that's happened to the son of Kish? Is Saul also among the prophets? A man who lived there answered, "And who's their father?" So it became a saying, "Is Saul also among the prophets?" After Saul stopped prophesying, he went to the high place. Now, Saul's uncle asked him and his servant, "Where have you been?" "Looking for the donkeys," he said, but when we saw they were not to be found, we went to Samuel. Saul's uncle said, "Tell me what Samuel said to you." Saul replied, he assured us that the donkeys had been found, but he didn't tell his uncle what Samuel had said about the kingship. Probably wise. Samuel summoned the people of Israel to the Lord at Mizpah and said to them, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says, quote, I brought Israel up out of Egypt, and I delivered you from the power of Egypt and all the kingdoms that oppressed you. But you've now rejected your God who saves you out of all your disasters and calamities, and you've said, no, appoint a king over us. So now present yourselves before the Lord by your tribes and clans, end quote. When Samuel had all Israel come forward by tribes, the tribe of Benjamin was taken by lot. Then he brought forward the tribe of Benjamin, clan by clan, and Matri's clan was taken, or Matri, M-A-T-R-I. Finally, Saul, son of Kish, was taken, but when they looked for him, he was not to be found. So they inquired further of the Lord, has the man come here yet? And the Lord said, yes, he's hidden himself among the supplies. They ran and brought him out. I guess he was scared to be anointed king or crowned king. They ran and brought him out, and as he stood among the people, he was a head taller than any of the others. Samuel said to all the people, do you see the man the Lord has chosen? There's no one like him among all the people. Then the people shouted, long live the king. Samuel explained to the people the rights and duties of kingship. He wrote them down on a scroll and deposited it before the Lord. Then Samuel dismissed the people to go to their own homes. Saul also went to his home in Gibeah, accompanied by valiant men whose hearts God had touched. But some scoundrels said, how can this fellow save us? They despised him and brought him no gifts, but Saul kept silent. So he noticed it, but he didn't say anything. But it must have been very heady to, 1 minute be one way and the next minute have valiant men accompanying you to your home because now you're the king of Israel, the first king. I don't remember them having any other king before this. So they had Rome. They were occupied by Rome, so there were Roman kings. But anyway, we'll pick it up tomorrow with 1 Samuel 11. I love you very much. Please have a good evening. Make sure you're praying. And don't forget to pray, okay? You've got to talk to your God. You have to talk to him. Just talk to him like you would talk to me or to your father or your brother, like your best friend. Just talk to him and tell him what's going on. Okay? I love you very much, and I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.